I got a busy couple days coming up, so today I'm just gonna chill, and I figured what better time than now to talk about music and my absolute love for it. To me, music is magic, and I cannot believe that we invented it. I mean, it makes sense that we could invent it in like this modern era, but the fact that instruments were created probably tens of thousands of years ago is insane. I think the earliest recording is a cave painting in France that has like a bow with the string on it. So that makes sense to me because, yeah, they created bows to hunt. And I guess they probably just flicked it and they're like, oh, that makes a sound. So that's interesting. And I think the earliest actual recorded instruments, because, instruments decompose because they're made from organic materials, is actually, 2000 BC, even older. So that's just mind blowing. Drums make sense. Stringed instruments, flutes, that's all kind of weird. Drums, that's just banging, right? I feel like we've been doing that since the dawn of man. So, yeah, let's get into it. As a kid, there was really only two sources that I could get music from, and that was my parents and my brother. Now, my dad, he wasn't around all the time because we lived East River, South Dakota, and he lived West River part time. And what that means is South Dakota is divided by the Missouri River, so we refer to it as the West and East River. And yeah, so I didn't see him all the time. And he didn't have quite as much of an influence on me in my earlier years as my mother and my brother did. Now, the first song that I recall really loving was Rocket Man by Elton John. And I actually like the whole greatest hits album in general, but Rocket Man, that's the first song that I played on repeat. And I did it so much that my parents' friends kind of made fun of me about it a little bit. After that, I recall my brother showing me a song called Three Little Pigs by Green Jelly, and I'm pretty sure he discovered that because of MTV. And he actually had it on tape cassette. So, yeah, that music video is incredible. It's nostalgic, and I really liked that song as a kid. It was a great introduction into like modern rock in a way. After that, when I was 8, we moved West River in with my dad, so he started to influence me more. And one of his favorite albums was Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And from that, I discovered another song on a different album called The Wall, called Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. And I was starting to dislike school around this time, so that song really resonated with me. And around that same time, I also really liked Hotel California. So, yeah, I was moving in the classic rock direction. Now, my mom was concerned about my brother listening to explicit music. I don't think she liked that. So, with me, she tried harder to steer me away from it and tried to get me into Christian music. And from that, there was one band that I really did like, and that was the hip hop Christian group DC Talk. We had their albums on cassette and CDs. So, that was one of the first bands where I would walk around listening to them on headphones, and I even fell asleep to them at night. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of when my love for music was really, really starting to begin. And after that, I did actually listen to some explicit music. One of them was One Fierce Beer Coaster by Bloodhound Gang. Firewater Burn, man, that's catchy, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason I started swearing. But yeah, I still listen to that album to this day. Great album. Another explicit band that I was shown, kind of explicit, was The Offspring. My friend Mike had some of their CDs, and yeah, The Offspring's great, man. Early punk, like, yeah, there's no denying that they're good. And so, yeah, that was kind of my elementary school years of dealing with music. So when I was in fifth grade, about to enter middle school, I started to get music from a new source outside of my family, which was video games. Now, those games specifically were Tony Hawk, which had Superman by Goldfinger and Police Truck by the Dead Kennedys, and Dave Miro, which had What I Got by Sublime. And I really love those songs. And I think between these two games and The Offspring, I started to realize I liked punk. And it was around this same time that my brother started listening to rap. I mean, maybe he listened to it earlier, but it's when I became aware of it. And he listened to Eminem and all that stuff. And I realized I didn't like rap. I am a rock guy. So, yeah, I was still listening to classic rock because my dad always listened to classic rock station, and so did I. And he listened to Aerosmith and all the classics, and my mom was listening to a different type of classic rock, Van Morrison, Neil Young, and Carly Simon. I liked all that too. So, yes, I was definitely still getting my classic rock fix. It was during this time, which was near the end of middle school, beginning of high school, that I discovered another classic rock band that became one of my all time favorite bands. And that's the Beatles. They had so many albums, and the percentage of their songs that are good is just incredible. And after that, I heard Band on the Run on the radio, and I was like, who is this? And then I discovered Paul McCartney's solo stuff, and man, I came to love that too. Ram, what a great album. And luckily enough, a little under 10 years ago, I actually got to see Paul McCartney perform live. And so that's the closest I'll ever get to seeing the Beatles. But man, what a show. It was a fantastic time. But it was in about seventh or eighth grade where another pivotal moment happened. And that was when I was hanging out with my friend Mike, and he showed me a program called LimeWire. And what did we use LimeWire for? We used it to download Weird Al. So, yeah. But hey, LimeWire was great. I used it to download way more after that. The songs in this game that just weren't on the radio or easily accessible to me, I can now download and listen to. So, yeah, this was also when I started to get into bad pop punk because, I watched movies like Dickie Roberts and the Scooby-Doo movies and stuff. So I came to like stuff like Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, Saves the Day, and all that stuff. And that was really pretty much my middle school years with music. So when I was in high school, a lot of my friends had older siblings who were showing them music, and in turn, they were showing me music. And I consider this almost the band's Warped Tour era of like punk and emo music, which consisted of bands such as AFI, Against Me, Alkaline Trio, and Thursday. And Thursday actually led to me to discover Joy Division because of their song Ian Curtis, and I love that band now. So outside of my friends, I was also still discovering music through my brother, or maybe even on my own a little bit. And things that I discovered was stuff like Unwritten Law and Brand New, which Brand New's Deja Entendu is one of my favorite albums to this day. Outside of that, me and my friend watched this internet group called Mega 64, and they heavily featured a band called Aquabats, which is a ska band. So I really loved them too. And a lot of the music I listened to in high school, I still listen to this day. But after all that, near the end of high school, junior year, maybe senior year, there was another really big important moment that happened to me. So when I was a junior in high school, I got Guitar Hero. Now, this game was highly influential to me, not only because it showed me new music, but it made me want to play guitar. I actually had a guitar before this, but I couldn't afford a teacher, and there was no YouTube, and internet tabs just aren't a great place to learn how to play guitar, so this made me feel like I was playing guitar. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I really want to talk about is that there was a bonus song selection in this game, and one of the songs in there was Hey by Honest Bob and the Factory to Dealer Incentives, and that was just a sound I hadn't really heard before. It was an indie sound, and I kind of learned that there was a whole indie world of music out there that nobody talked about. And so when I was in college, I got really into listening to stuff from Pitchfork's Albums of the Year and Songs of the Year, along with Rolling Stone's Top 500 Albums of All Time. So, yeah. From that, I learned of a band called Pavement. And, people talk about soulmates. Well, I felt like Pavement was my soul band. I freaking loved the indie sound, and I became obsessed with late 80s and 90s indie rock, I like stuff such as Archers of Low, Built to Spill, The Wedding Present, Neutral Milk Hotel, Guided by Voices, and Dinosaur Jr., which Jay Mascis is seriously hands down my favorite guitarist. So, yeah, that's when I became an indie guy. So it was in college that I found most of the music that I listened to. I mean, I found stuff since then, like I found Car Seat Headrest, who I love a lot, but it was during those couple years sitting in my room all the time listening to music that I found most of what I love today. You know, outside of listening to late 80s and 90s indie rock, I was listening to some modern stuff like Symbols Eat Guitar and Yuck. And then I also loved this band called The Unicorns. They have this album called Who Will Cut Our Hair When We're Gone, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. Nothing sounds like it. They might sound childish when you first listen to them, but if you actually listen to it, you'll hear how good it actually is. It's just so unique. outside of that, I was still being influenced by friends. We were in our drug phase a little bit, tripping, and we came to like stuff like Animal Collective and the Flaming Lips. And alongside that, I also like the post rock band Explosions in the Sky, who are pretty influential to me. Like, I want to make music that's similar to that. Not full on, but slightly inspired. I'm inspired by lots of stuff. And at that time, I was also still in a punk phase. I was listening to more mature punk, crust punk, Choking Victim, Leftover Crack, No Cash. Yeah, great stuff. So I'm still finding new music to this day. Like recently, I've become interested in math rock and emo. So I like stuff like American Football, and I've also been listening to Japanese math rock, which is a bunch of bands I can't pronounce. Some of them I can, and I'm also still finding older indie rock bands such as At the Drive-In. So, yeah, my musical taste is ever changing. But the beautiful thing about music is it's just this endless black pit that you can just dig into ever and find something new. And the great thing about music is that you can literally find your new favorite band next week.